Welcome. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras. This is the Contreras Report, the political edition. It's Thursday, January 28th. We're going to catch up since the inauguration, and then we'll talk about what's coming up in the next few days. First, President Joseph R. Biden has issued a large number of executive orders, some of which have been designed to circumvent executive orders that were issued by President Trump during his 4 years in office. Some executive orders that many people didn't like. Now, that's the bane of the executive order situation. If one president doesn't like it, he just simply writes another one to get rid of the one that he doesn't like. So we don't know yet what effect these will all have, but for example, he's ordered an executive order to stop construction of the wall. I think that's a pretty good order that will stand up, because as the commander-in-chief, he can order the military to do whatever is legal. And in this case, it's the military on the border, the Corps of Engineers, that's in charge of the construction of the wall. So therefore, if he orders the military officers of the Army quit building the wall, they have to obey. That is a legal order, and so they have to stop construction. Now, it may be that some of the private companies, because actually the construction is being done by private companies that are contracted for. It may be that some of them may have contracts that don't allow for the wall to be, the construction to stop on the wall, or provide them some kind of guarantee. That I don't know. We'll find that out soon when companies start to sue, if they do start to sue. Now, one of those orders stopped construction of the Keystone pipeline from Canada, which is running through the Dakotas, at least through South Dakota. And construction has been going on since President Trump approved it some 2 or 3 years ago. A lot of people are upset about that, and in fact, I am too. I don't think the president should stop construction of the Keystone pipeline. I don't care about the complaints that and the lawsuits that have been filed against them. None of them have any validity as far as I am concerned. It has passed economic and environmental requirements. And all the environmental tests and reports have been made. And it's up to the president to make sure that it gets done. It's not creating any new oil. It's not a new well situation. These are oil production. This is oil production in Canada that is going on right now and is being, through the Keystone pipeline, shipped into the United States, where it hooks up to our regular pipeline infrastructure, and then taken to the Gulf of Mexico, where it will be refined and then from there exported. It's not going to be used in the United States. It's not increasing our oil supply. It's only being brought here for refinement and then shipping to other parts of the world. That is not a bad situation, because no matter how hard we try, no matter how hard President Biden tries to lower our carbon production and all that kind of stuff, and to wean us off of fossil fuels, we're going to be using fossil fuels for a long time. I don't care what anybody says, 25, 50 years probably is what we'll be using fossil fuels for. And so cutting back on them is okay, but you can cut back on them by limiting new production. This is not new production. It's production already being made. Now, if it doesn't go through the Keystone pipeline, the Canadians will build a pipeline over the mountains and to British Columbia, and then export it or refine it there and export it around the world. So it's not going to cut back. Stopping the pipeline is not going to come back, or it's not going to limit carbon production and environmental effects and all that kind of stuff, because that oil is still going to be used. It's shale oil. It's being produced in Canada in the mountains. And what we need to do is to limit new production. And that can be done by, for example, President Biden's executive order saying no more permits, at least temporarily, no more permits on federal land. However, there's an exception to that too. On Indian territory and Indian reservations, that executive order doesn't apply. So if the Indians want to allow more oil production on their reservations because they need the money, they can. And the president is bound by agreements not to do that. Okay, so that's the thing on the Keystone Pipeline. Mr. Biden, I am opposed to stopping construction on the Keystone Pipeline. And if I were the Canadians trying to build it, I would go into court immediately. And I suspect, I don't know, it's a 50-50 shot as to what would happen. Now, impeachment. As you all know, the House of Representatives passed a bill of impeachment against President Donald Trump, the former president. And so that went easily in the House of Representatives. 10 Republicans made it the first bipartisan impeachment ever. It's always been a one-party deal on the previous impeachments of Mr. Trump, Mr. Clinton, and Andrew Johnson back in 1860, whatever year it was, 67 or 68. So we have the House voting the impeachment. They walked over the one article of impeachment to the Senate, and the trial will start on February 8th, Monday, February 8th. They had a test vote, a procedural vote, on a measure introduced by Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, to declare the trial unconstitutional. The impeachment unconstitutional, which therefore would make the trial unconstitutional. His reasoning was that President Donald J. Trump, pardon me for tripping, Donald J., that he no longer is president. Therefore, the impeachment should not go on because it's not constitutional. But that's not true. Senator Rand Paul apparently has no knowledge of history, has absolutely no knowledge of American history or British history from which impeachment came, directly from the British in governance into the U.S. Constitution written in 1787. Of course you can impeach a president after he's gone. The one case that we have at the presidential level, so to speak, is the Secretary of War under President U.S. Grant, who was impeached, who resigned before the trial, or before the impeachment actually, so that he could escape punishment. But the Congress went ahead and impeached him and then had a trial in which he was acquitted, as it turned out, but he had resigned. He resigned before they could try him. So it doesn't make any difference if you're in or out of office, because another provision of the impeachment section of the Constitution is that if a conviction occurs with 2/3 of the senators present, then they can go on and vote to bar or to ban that person, the impeached person, the guilty person, the person convicted. They can keep him from running ever again for public office in the United States of America. So, of course you can impeach and try a former president. Rand Paul is wrong. That's not unusual. Rand Paul is wrong 95% of the time. His whole existence is 95% non-existent. He is not a Republican. He is a libertarian, like his father was. His father was, although a Republican congressman for years, was never really a Republican. And Rand Paul is not a Republican. Rand Paul is a libertarian, and Rand Paul can't read the Constitution, and can't read or hasn't read history. So Rand Paul should actually be defeated any time he runs for office. He is a sore, S-O-R-E, on the body of Congress. QAnon. There are a couple of Congress people, new ones that just elected, Republicans, one lady from Georgia, who in the past has written on Facebook and Twitter things like executing congressmen because they're evil and traitors and what have you. And this is all coming out now. She has a really big mouth. She's not very smart. She's one of these conspiracy type nuts. And although she just got elected, she should be thrown out of Congress based on her calls for executing United States congressmen before she was elected. She is a disgrace. She should be thrown out of Congress. Congress can expel her. First, they should censure her. And then she'll yap back because she's got a big mouth. And she'll fight back and say all kinds of stupid things. And then they should expel her. So let's leave it at that. QAnon, the conspiracy nuts. They think that the federal government, that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring out of a pizza joint in Washington, D.C. That high members of the government and politics, like Hillary Clinton, were in charge of this grand conspiracy of pedophiles trafficking in children out of a pizza place in Washington, D.C. You all know the story. And if you don't know the story, Google it. QAnon, Q-A-O-N, QAnon, QAnon, Q-A-N-O-N. And look it up. Educate yourself. Look at 4 or 5 different articles to get from a broad spectrum of news reporting. Okay, the impeachment trial will start February 8th. I don't know how it's going to be run. We do know that Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts will not supervise the trial. It will be done by a senator from Vermont who's been in the Senate 60 years or so. He's 80 years old. I don't know if he's going to be able to put up with the trial. All I know is that I'm 80 years old, and I would not be looking forward to organizing and supervising a trial in the Senate. The threat of a third party. Senators are on the impeachment. The Rand Paul measure to declare the trial unconstitutional was voted on in the Senate, and the vote was 55 noes to the measure and 45 yeses. All 45 were Republican senators. They're a really gutless bunch. And I hate to say that about my party senators, but we got a bunch of gutless wonders in Washington, D.C., in the U.S. Senate. Of course, the trial isn't unconstitutional. But these guys, they're trying to get out of voting. If this was a secret ballot in the U.S. Senate instead of open, if it was a secret ballot, Donald Trump would be convicted. There was no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. But it's not a secret ballot. And we can't really have secret ballots in the U.S. Congress. Okay, back to the trial starting on the 8th. That's on Monday. It'll be televised. Everybody should watch it. The threat of a third party. Donald Trump is he's hinting that he will start a third party. People around him are hinting that they will start a third party, the Trump party. They're going to call it something like the Patriot Party. There's already a Patriot Party that's listed legally in several states, so they'd have to use another name or buy it out. And if they do that, we're talking about another Ross Perot situation. Remember this. President George H.W. Bush, President 43, did not lose that election. He didn't carry certain states that were normal Republican states because Ross Perot got in there in his third party thing and siphoned off enough votes. In fact, I did the research. There were 17 states that Clinton carried by less than 2 or 3% because 2 or 3% of the votes went to Ross Perot instead of George H.W. Bush, the incumbent. So it's Ross Perot that you have to blame, not George H.W. Bush or Bill Clinton. Ross Perot was the reason Bill Clinton was elected. Clinton only got 43% of the vote. Clinton only got 43% of the vote. That's all. He never got a majority. Never got a majority. And so what you have to understand is that third-party garbage will keep the Republicans from winning in 2024, no matter who the candidate is. It will not matter. Whoever the Democrats run, I'm sure it won't be Joe Biden, but so it'll be probably Kamala Harris, maybe, and or somebody else. They or Barry Sanders. No, Sanders is too old. Senator Warren in Massachusetts would probably grab the nomination again with a minority of delegates, a plurality, not a majority. And it's really interesting that Trump is still, and his people are talking about this third party, like he could possibly win. He'd get a third of the vote. The Republican would get maybe 35, 36% of the vote. And the Democrat would win with 44, 45% of the vote. And then we'd be stuck with it for years, probably. So listen, folks, listen to what's going on and make an intelligent decision. Can you support a third-party effort by former President Donald J. Trump? Because if you do, you'll destroy the political process in America like it was in 1992. And in fact, we'll have another Bill Clinton, only it might be somebody wearing a skirt this time. You do what you have to do in your own conscience. Use your own conscience. But if you follow a third-party route, you're destroying the political system of America, just like it was destroyed in 1992. Bill Clinton had no reason to be president of the United States twice for 8 years. Look at the damage he did. I mean, the guy has no reputation. He's a crook. He's, not quite a pedophile because his favorite intern was 21, but just 3 years out. Yeah, otherwise he would have been a pedophile. I don't think he would have cared. In any event, look, don't fall for that third-party stuff. Don't fall for it. If you want to support President Trump again in 2024, you go ahead and do it as a Republican. Because I don't think he can get the nomination again. We'll have 4 years in which to beat him up badly for the way he behaved as president. I'm not talking about the good things he did, because he did some good things. But most of what he did was not good. And the last 3 months of his presidency were the worst 3 months any U.S. president has ever experienced. That's my political report for January 28th, 2020, and I'm Raul Lowry Contreras. This is the Contreras Report, Political Edition. We'll be back in a few days with a current report that will be current as of that day. And if you want to subscribe, do so on YouTube or Facebook. YouTube and Facebook, subscribe so that you will be notified when we make a new post. Thank you again for being there. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras. See you soon.